me tell you about a friend. It's Craig LeBlanc where the good times never end. Talking Parks and Rec, it's a show you gotta know. Welcome one and all to the Daily Parks and Rec Show. It's the Daily Parks and Rec Show.
You know, we always focus on the ADA accessibility, right, in our system, right? We have to meet those standards, but I think going beyond that, right, those ADA standards and making sure that our playgrounds are truly accessible to everybody, where they have a cognitive disability, physical disability, social disability, right? That I think we're only really starting to scratch the surface of what that actually is. When we're building new parks and new playgrounds, making sure we're bringing that community in and saying, okay, how do you interact with these spaces, and making sure that we're building them.
Welcome back to the Daily Parks and Rec Show. Today we're thrilled to have a special guest joining us from Erie, Colorado, Luke Bollinger. Erie is a rapidly growing community, and Luke plays a key role in shaping its outdoor landscape. Colorado is known for its incredible outdoor culture, and their parks, trails, and open spaces are highly valued and well supported. We'll be diving deep into how Luke and his team in Erie manage and design these vital community assets. From inclusive playground designs that even involve kids in the planning process to navigating the evolving use of their extensive trail systems, including the rise of e-bikes, Luke brings a unique perspective. His background in the Marine Corps has even influenced his approach to public service, emphasizing adaptability and a focus on wellness. Get ready for an insightful conversation about the incredible work happening in Parks and Rec. All right, we are live again. This is Craig LeBlanc, the doorman with the Daily Parks and Rec Show. Hope everyone had a great weekend. I know a lot of Parks and Rec friends of mine, per usual, just had another big special event that they're recovering from over the weekend. But I have a special guest from Erie, Colorado, Luke Bollinger. How are you doing today, Luke?
I'm doing great, Craig. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Okay, so we'll go ahead and play. We've actually got a lot of new media coming out, promoting all the shows. Our version 2s and version 3s are coming out. So we've got a special one for young professionals, a facilities maintenance show. And then I think I'm also going to still play my 200th episode. Thank you to everyone that has come on the show, just to get a little more mileage out of that one. So we'll play that and we'll come right back with Luke. Welcome to DPRS Media Co., the first media company built for the people behind the Parks and Rec community. We don't just cover on Parks and Rec, we elevate it, we amplify it, we honor it. At the heart of everything we do is one mission: to serve the public servants, the professionals who design, maintain, and lead the parks that shape our communities. Under the Daily Parks and Rec Show, we produce 6 powerful platforms. Leadership in Parks and Rec, a spotlight on directors, superintendents, and visionaries shaping the future of public spaces. Facility maintenance, where the boots hit the ground, a deep dive into the systems, crews, and craftsmanship that keep our parks clean, safe, and beautiful. Young Professionals Network, shining a light on the next generation of Parks and Rec. Students, interns, and mentors sharing how we build a legacy together. Youth Sports Mastery, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics. This series is for coaches, parents, and rec leaders working to make youth sports fun, fair, and meaningful again. The Rec Room, hosted by the passionate leaders of Henry County Parks and Rec. This show brings frontline energy and real-life stories from the field. And the weekly Parks and Rec Post, our official newsletter delivering stories, insights, and community wins every week. We are DPRS Media Co., LLC, a media company with a mission to uplift the professionals who serve every community, every park, every day. All right, and for my second commercial, I want to play the 200th episode. Thank you to everyone that has come on the show. We just crossed that last week, so it was kind of a big milestone for us. And then we'll come back and chat with Luke.
From a simple mic in a rec center to a full-scale media company for the people who power our parks. 200 real stories, 5 original shows, and more to come.
with one powerful mission: to lift up the voices of Parks and Rec professionals across the country. From maintenance crews and young interns and youths who love sports, to directors and public servants making a difference. We've built a platform that honors the unsung heroes behind every clean trail, every weekend tournament, every safe, welcoming park. This milestone isn't just about the content, it's about the people, the passion, the purpose. To every guest, listener, and supporter, thank you. The next chapter starts today. This is DPRS Media Co. Media for public service.
All right, Luke, I think we need to start by you telling everybody about your home office and background and everything we were talking about leading into this, because it's just so classic Parks and Rec culture.
Yeah. First of all, I'm motivated right now. Those are heck of a commercial,
Thank you.
couple of commercials to get me motivated on a Monday. Yeah. So this is my home office. I'm fortunate enough to be able to work from home on Monday, and I spent 10 years in the Marine Corps, so you got to put up the traditional Marine Corps,
Absolutely.
certificates and whatnot. And then I think my favorite one here. There's a couple of park designs back here that I have an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I often ask them, hey, what do you guys want to see in parks? What do you love about parks? And they'll take a 24 by 36 old plan set that I've got lying around, and they'll just go at it. And it actually really helps when you're just having conversations with the community, and it's fun to kind of dive into those young minds and see how they want to see parks laid out. So I was telling you earlier, I think this one has an aquatics focus.
Yeah.
So we're looking at that here in Erie right now and seeing what we can come up with. So I said, hey, give me some ideas for an aquatics video. So
Yeah. I'm wondering why you work from home on Mondays. Is it because you never see a weekend that's your own, and your weekend is
no,
Monday?
it's just kind of one of those holdovers from the
Mhm.
days when we were all working from home. And
Mhm.
again, Erie, we're pretty fortunate to be able to have a flexible work schedule. So I just picked Mondays, and it kind of helps with those Sunday scaries a little bit to know that you don't have to get up and rush into the office. I only live about 10 minutes away, so I guess I'm not really rushing to
Oh,
the office anyway. So, but it's just nice. And during the school year, I'm able to take the kids to school and pick them up, and kind of help my wife Cassie, kind of help with her schedule a little bit too. Most of her meetings are on Monday, so I'm able to kind of stay home, take care of the kids, but get a lot of work done at home too, because you're just kind of dialed in a little bit more than you are at the office. So very fortunate to be able to have that opportunity.
yeah, fantastic. And then shout out to my buddy Cameron in Kentucky. He wrote a child's book on how to build a park, and he got the idea partially from when he went to school for Parks and Recreation. His professor did the same thing you're doing with your children, just gave them the big construction paper, 2 by 3, and said, build a park. And so how has that been useful to y'all, at least to use your kids as the designers of of any future playground that they may be wanting to play in?
Well, and I think that's the big thing is those are the folks that are going to actually use the park, and
Mhm.
often use the amenities in the park. So you to think like a child is hard, right? Because we have our own shared experiences as we've grown up, and there's some practicality to what we do as park designers. But when you're thinking about uh, designing these spaces, within a park site, the kids just have this different mindset. So it's really insightful where when you see how they connect the playground to the multi-use turf field, and where the restrooms are located and where parking is located. I every fall I'm fortunate enough to go visit a second grade class at Grandview Elementary here in town in Frederick, where I live, and I get to go talk to kids about the park design process, and it's amazing what they can come up with. And yeah, they do have those creative minds, like they want big trampoline parks, and they want 100-foot diving boards and things like that. But they're really practical too, and they think about things like site lighting and site circulation and things like that. So we take those concepts, and when we're doing park designs, we'll just give a whole bunch of kids some, like you said, some construction paper and say, design this park. What do you like to see in a park? And we'll take ideas from that, because ultimately they're your end users, and you want them to have a park that they feel like they have a little bit of buy-in.
Yeah. And so have you had any luck, trying to remember how to think like a child? What are the things that you kinda slip away as an adult, and what do
Yeah.
these children remind you of when you dig back in and say, "Help me think like you."
Well, and probably a lot of people will tell you this. I'm a big kid at heart.
Mhm.
I don't think I'll ever grow up. So, but yeah, you start to think about the things, like I said, is like, oh, where's the sanitary sewer line? Where's the water line? Oh, we can't do that because of a utility easement and things like that. So, you have to take yourself out of that mindset and say, well, what is possible? And
Mhm.
how is somebody who is 5, 6, 7 years old gonna use this park? And how are they going to grow with it too? Because I think that's really important. It's when you're designing a 2 to 5 playground or a 5 to 12 playground, is how do you grow with that park? So it's some of those things that you kind of your imagination is kind of squandered a little bit sometimes on some of the more practical things, but
Mhm.
always maintaining that balance of, well, how can we make this like really super fun, but also being practical, and with your things like utilities and drainage and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And some of that can be challenging and fun at the same times, and using those things to your advantage too, I think can really help
yeah.
merge the play and the practicality in the park design.
Any part of a playground that kinda stands out that kids like to play with that you
Oh,
found?
I think whenever we do, whether it's a conceptual site plan, or even we're updating our strategic plan, our post playbook right now. Swings, slides are really popular. The equipment that we grew up on, the merry-go-rounds, right? The
Yeah,
ones that had no governor on it, and you could
death
just see
trap.
how fast that thing go. That kids really like those. And
Uh-huh.
then I think what we're really leaning into here in Erie right now is that inclusive play, is making sure that no matter the ability, that any kid can come and play on a playground, because it's fun for everybody. So
Mhm.
the swings and the slides are still really popular. The rope climbers are really popular. Kids love to get really high. We have a big
Oh, I love it.
30-foot net climber at Erie Community Park, and you climb up to the top of that thing. Again, I've climbed it before because I'm a big kid, and you can just see the front range. It's
Yep.
pretty amazing. So kids like to get elevated, and kids like to swing and move, and they just like to be kids. Groundsies is, again, I hear that every time. They like to hop, the floor is lava type games. Kids just love to
Mhm.
be elevated.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love how the new playgrounds is something I saw, gosh, maybe it's been 5 or maybe even 10 years now, but these climbing structures that when you look at it, you're like, "Okay, it seems like if a kid fell from that, but if you fell, you'd probably hit about 20 things on the way down," which
Yeah,
I think is the safety component of it. But I
yeah.
love those little kinda spider webs that they make on these climbing structures, and the kids, sure enough, like you said, they go all the way to the top.
And they're just all over it. Yeah, that's often, you kind of have that little bit of moment, and that's the adult in us, right?
Right,
Going back to your previous question is, well, kids climb trees. Kids have been climbing trees for hundreds of years,
right.
and there was no playground surfacing. I remember growing up on the farm, and climbing the big oak tree in our backyard. There was no playground surfacing or anything like that. So, yeah, I think you combine that little bit of risk with as much safety as you can, and
Mhm.
let kids take a little bit of that risk and let them be uncomfortable. My 8-year-old, right? She was hesitant to climb this big rope structure, but she overcame that fear, and I think that's what playgrounds really are all about, is the social aspect, but also the physical fit, the physical health, but also that anxiety that you can get about being up too high or swinging or things like that. That can really help kids' confidence, and I think that's the unsung pieces of playground that
Mm.
the general public doesn't always understand. And so we try to do that in all of our playground designs. And we're pretty fortunate here in Erie because we get to build so many of them and renovate them. And like you said, they're so creative these days. And it's how do we push that envelope just a little bit by maintaining the safety, but also kind of pushing
Yeah.
uh, that anxiety just a little bit for them to overcome it.
Yeah, and I would encourage, and I don't know if this is some unspoken rule or whatever, but my kids always wanted me to be on the playground with them. So I'd always be climbing the structure, playing tag with them. I haven't yet been asked by some person, "Hey, that's for kids only." So I'm just gonna keep going at it, but, get in there with them and you can kinda see what they're experiencing and stuff. It's a blast, and they love it. They love to see when I'm up there with them doing stuff.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm 6'8", so I have to be very careful of what playground structures I'm climbing and
Yeah.
what tube slides I'm getting into because I don't want to end up on, like
Stuck.
the first episode of the Parks and Recreation stuck in a stuck in a slide. So, but yeah,
Yeah,
I love seeing parents on playgrounds with kids, and because that's really what it's all about. It's
yeah,
keeping people connected in our spaces. That's what we're all about.
yeah. Alright, so you're on the Front Range, which for those that don't know, well, just Colorado in general, I think may win the award for the most outdoorsy population that invests and clings on to their Parks and Rec department more than most states that I've interviewed. But, tell us a little bit about Erie, Colorado. Where's it at in regards to Colorado? And then describe what is the Front Range for those that aren't from Colorado.
Sure. So Erie is about 35 minutes north of Denver, which is the capital of Colorado.
Mhm,
If you're familiar with Fort Collins or Colorado State University, we're about another 35 minutes south of Fort Collins. So we're kind of nestled right in the middle. And the Front Range is really, we're not quite up against the mountains. We're just in that bridge between the plains of eastern Colorado and
mhm,
the foothills of the Rocky Mountains that go from basically all the way through the state from the northern border all the way down south. So that Front Range is this area along I-25, which is Interstate 25 that runs down the middle of the state. Everything kind
mhm.
of along that corridor is considered the Front Range. And Erie's I've said this probably a million times by now, but Erie's a rapidly developing community incorporated in 1874 as old mining community.
Mhm.
That was on its last leg when the coal mining kind of dried up a little bit, and alternative energy resources, and then had this resurgence as a bedroom community. And probably in the 90s and in the 2000s, and then the last probably 8 or 9 years, we've been just growing like crazy. 8, 7, 8, 9% growth year over year. I think when I started here, we were around 20,000 people. We're now over 40,000, almost 41,000, if not a little bit more than that. So
Mhm.
just that pace of growth is just crazy. And it's a pretty ideal location because, like I said, you're pretty close to I-25 major corridor. You're pretty close to Denver. You're pretty close to Boulder. I kind of left out Boulder. Sorry, Boulder. We're,
Yeah,
we're, we're, we're just east of Boulder, probably about 15, 20 minutes east of Boulder and CU. And so it's a really ideal location, of all the growth that's happening, not just within Erie, but really just along the Front Range.
right. And maybe explain to those that are outside of Colorado, what it's like managing a Parks and Rec system inside of the Colorado culture, which is, like I said before, just extremely outdoor people just seem to
Mhm.
move there for that reason so that they can be outside and how they really cling on to their parks and support them versus a lot of other states, parks is like first on the chopping block when things get tight. Y'all are like last on the chopping block. You're gonna close the city down if before they start
Yeah.
cutting parks.
No, you're spot on, Craig. Colorado is high expectations for our parks and our outdoor spaces. We're very fortunate in Colorado. I'm very fortunate to work here in Colorado, where, to your point, they value those parks, the trails, the open space. We kind of to your mention of other states, our lotteries, a portion of our lottery dollars goes towards outdoor spaces. So we changed the constitution in 1992 to create an organization called Great Outdoors Colorado, and it's a
Mm,
granting organization that supports parks, trails, and open space throughout Colorado. We support Colorado Parks and Wildlife. We support non motorized trails program. We support state parks, a lot of lottery funding. Actually, every municipal or Title 32 district or municipality in the state gets a cut of the lottery dollars to use through the
Nice.
Conservation Trust Fund, through Department of Local Affairs to use for parks, trails, and open space. So if you're a community of 41,000, or if you're a community of 5,000 where I grew up, you're getting a cut of that, and
Mhm.
you're using that money towards parks and recreation. And the private industry, obviously we love the private, we love the private public partnerships as much as we can. So you think about up in the mountains and the rafting and the skiing, and it's a year-round industry here in Colorado. And I don't want to sound like an outdoor economist or anything like that, but a large part of Colorado's economy does stem from outdoor recreation, because there is so much of it. And again, you have different experiences here in Erie. You drive an hour and a half, you're in the mountains. If
Mhm.
you and whether that's in the winter and you're skiing or snowshoeing or something like that, and in the summertime you're an hour and a half away from some of the best hiking in the world. I think we have 42 state parks here in
Mm.
Colorado, a ton of conserved land that will never ever get developed by housing or commercial. So yeah, it's just an amazing state to work in, and it's an amazing area to work in, because people move to Erie, and I'm comfortable saying this because our community surveys have said it year over year over year, is people move to cities or towns like Erie because of parks, trails, and open space.
Mhm. And I noticed that it's not just parks and recreation, but it seems like you'll always throw trails in there because, from what I've seen, trails is just a whole 'nother animal when it comes to what happens in Colorado. It's not just kinda like a side note. It really is a part of the community, even part of your transportation system. So maybe you can dig a little deeper into explaining to the rest of the country what does trails mean in Colorado and then, also in Erie?
Yeah, trails is a huge part of what we do, in Colorado, whether they're local trails. So just getting from your neighborhood to the neighborhood park to the community park, those kind of off street connections really give people the opportunity to feel like they're not in a developed area. So when we look at our trail system, yep, it's part of our transportation network. How are we getting people off out of a car onto a bike, onto a scooter, something like that, and getting them where we need to go? And then regionally, how are we connecting communities with regional trail systems? And
Yep.
if you look, outside of Denver, when you're thinking about the South Platte Trail and how that runs through, basically north to south of Denver, this major metropolitan city, and you're running along the South Platte River, it's so important. And having worked in downtown for a number of years and having used that trail system, it's important because it gives that people that opportunity to not use their car and be able to get to work. And then when you start talking about hiking trails, that's a whole nother subset of our trail system, right? That's
Mhm.
the nature experience, and getting people back out into nature in a responsible and safe manner, and getting people out, just outside. So trails are immensely important, not from a transportation, but from a recreational perspective,
Mm.
just to make sure people are given that opportunity to hop on a path that they know they don't have to have any interactions with cars or trucks or anything like that.
Yeah. And I know a lot of big cities. I have a daughter that lives in, Dallas, and it seems like some of these big cities just are not, friendly to anything outside of a car. But these trails are now back in the day, though, the only way to get on a trail was either you were walking or you had a bike that was 100% human powered. And now within the last, I guess, decade with these advancements of batteries and electric motors, you've got all these different wheeled vehicles, powered vehicles, uni-wheel like, how are y'all handling that as it rolls out and becomes just and then some of these things get up to, like, 40, 50 miles an hour with one big fat wheel and looks like a skateboard. How are y'all addressing those issues coming up?
It's sometimes it's like a scene out of Back to the Future, and you never
Yep.
thought you you would see it, and it's like, is that thing a hover bike? Oh no, it's just yeah, it's got the one big wheel on it. But no,
Uh-huh.
that is it's something that I think a lot of us are dealing with, particularly here in Colorado, because as you mentioned the advancement with e-bikes and the accessibility of e-bikes and e-scooters and e-wheels and all these different things it is making sure that those users and the our traditional trail users, somebody who's just walking their dog in the morning, excuse me, or just out having a walk or having a run at lunch, making sure that they kind of understand that it is a shared system. And we're
Mhm.
doing a lot of education with our police department. Erie PD has been great for us, just helping educate users on what types of bikes are allowed on trails and how fast we need to go. And know and remember, this is a shared path, right? This is not just for e-bike. So it's a big challenge for us, and making sure that especially with our younger population who are using these e-bikes to get around, which is great. We want them on our trail system. So to tell people that it's not allowed, you have to educate folks
Mhm.
on what types of bikes are allowed. So you have the class 1 and 2 and 3 e-bikes, and we try to limit those to our class 1s and 2s, which the class 3s, yeah, they can get up to 40 miles an hour. I think I was
Mhm.
going down a hill the other day, and I saw a kid riding a bike on the sidewalk next to. I was going 40 miles an hour, which is the speed limit on Erie Parkway, and he was keeping pace. And I was like, "Holy moly!" I was jumping my bike when I was a kid there on the farm, but I mean, I
Mhm.
wasn't going 40 miles an hour. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of just education and cooperation with the public, and making sure that they understand that these are shared systems, and we want to be cognizant of that. And it's just about human behavior and being respectful for
Yeah.
one another, which has its challenges.
Now, how have the trails adapted? Like in around Audubon Park in New Orleans, gosh, it's got to be like a 20-foot wide. It's practically a road, and they've got like a little part where it says bikes, walking, slow traffic. It's almost like a passing lane kind of thing. Are y'all having to kind of upgrade your trails? Obviously you've got your nature trails, which a lot of times are just dirt going through the woods kind of stuff. But then you've got
Mhm.
some of these trails are you can tell these guys are going to work. This isn't a workout for them. They're dressed for work. They got their book sack. They're dressed in
Yeah.
slacks and stuff, and they're riding there. This is their transportation.
Yeah. Well, so mainly signage, right? I think that's our because of our,
Mm,
a lot of our trail system is established, and when you start thinking about these regional trails, and you only have so much, whether it be right of way or you have so much land to work with,
mm,
we try to maintain a 10-foot path. We feel that's pretty sufficient for a bike and a walker. But I think what we're trying to do now is a lot of education with signage program and just working with our teen advisory group, our Erie Youth for Change group, and just kind of helping us educate people on just basic rules of the path, if you will, rules of
mhm,
the trail. But when we talk in infrastructure types, it's a lot of the signage, and we're considering kind of the dismount areas. You see those a lot, especially in the dense urban areas. Hey, just get off your bike and just walk it, right? Because you do have, especially in our neighborhood parks and our community park that we have, it's just you can't be zipping around there at 15, 20, 25 miles an hour, because there's soccer going on, there's softball, there's just trail users. So yeah, just really leaning into that education, and then upgrading the signage. But with so much development happening here, we try to get as much path as we can. I wish we could go to 12, 15 feet, but sometimes that's just not in the cards. So a lot of those updates to our existing trail system with just signage.
yeah. Okay, I'm gonna break a little early because I want to learn more about your military history. I didn't realize you were in the Marines and maybe how that kind of prepared you for Parks and Recreation. Because I had a guest on the other day, and he actually helped run the park systems in the military,
Okay.
and so I wanna see if you had any experience with that and how that kinda prepared you for it for any of our other veterans that are coming into the industry. But let's go ahead and play This is a brand new, both of these are brand new. This is our YPN and then our facilities maintenance. And then we'll come back and talk about your military career.
Are you ready to lead the next generation of Parks and Rec? Whether you're a student, intern, or rising leader, welcome to the Young Professionals Network by DPRS Media Co. Our mission? To empower early career professionals in parks and recreation through mentorship, visibility, and real-world leadership development. Our vision? A national network of passionate, prepared, and purpose-driven leaders who shape the future of public service. Starting now. Powered by the Daily Parks and Rec Show, YPN gives you access to exclusive interviews, career-building resources, behind-the-scenes content, and live events, all created by and for the next wave of Parks and Rec professionals. Learn from seasoned directors, build your brand, get involved with national conversations that matter. Whether you're in youth sports, facilities, programming, or policy, YPN is your launchpad. Young Professionals Network, your career, your community, your story.
All right, so that's a show we do every Friday at 12 noon, all for things young professionals, just a really growing part of the Parks and Rec profession. And I know you're really active in it, so I want to talk about that as well. But let's also go ahead and not forget the people that maintain our park systems. They're, by a lot of estimates, a third to maybe even a half of the effort and manpower and money goes into just keeping all this infrastructure running. And so we have a whole show dedicated to them that we run in the mornings every Monday through Thursday, 10:30 a.m. So we'll play that. I'll be right back.
Behind every thriving park, every safe playground, every event-ready field, there's a team working before sunrise and long after sunset. This is Facility Maintenance, the only show created for and by the unsung heroes of parks and recreation. Brought to you by DPRS Media Co., where real work gets real recognition. From restrooms to rec centers, HVAC to turf tech, we go beyond the job site into the heart of operations that keep our communities moving. Our mission? To elevate maintenance teams through stories, solutions, and shared experience. Our vision? A world where every facility crew is seen, valued, and fully supported. Each episode features operators, innovators, and leaders, sharing tools, tech, and tactics that make the impossible look easy. Facility maintenance isn't just a job, it's purpose, it's passion, and now it's a show. Facility Maintenance, where tools meet purpose, where work becomes legacy.
All right. So, Marine Corps, what were you there? And tell us about, what the military does as far as Parks and Rec on every base.
Yeah. So I enlisted right out of high school. I was one of those kids. I was like, I don't know what I really want to do. I'd worked for the Brush Parks and Rec department for, throughout high school and do an adult softball umpire, but I didn't really know what exactly I wanted to do. So I enlisted right out of high school. I enlisted as a 0621 field radio operator in August of 2004. I went to boot camp at MCRD San Diego, went through Marine Combat Training, went to Frock School, Field Radio Operators Course School in beautiful 29 Palms, California. And then I transitioned right into the reserves and then came back to Colorado and what is now Buckley Space Force Base. It used to be just Buckley Air Force Base in Aurora, and kind of settled into that unit, and then immediately went into the uh, went to Iraq in 2006, and came back and decided that, hey, I love being in the Marine Corps Reserves, but I also really like this Parks and Rec thing. So then I started going to school and did my time at University of Northern Colorado and was being reserves at the same time. I think my best experience on kind of how we can relate kind of parks and recreation and the military is my time both at Buckley Air Force Base and over in Iraq, right, where you had a gym space that you could go and work out in and be just be a human and work out. And then at Buckley they had some great facilities, some turf fields where you could go and, play football and run around and play basketball, at their facility. So that there's definitely some, see, they call that military. I can't remember what the acronym, but yeah, there's a whole wing of military, basically recreation,
Mhm.
and it's really important to the overall health and wellness of folks in the military, because it gives them that break, that separation that you really need, from often what is a stressful, whether you're rotating in and out of deployments, or you're out in the field for a week, and just going to the rec center, or going to the field and just playing basketball with your fellow Marines or your soldiers or your airmen is really important. Just like we have here, just in normal life. That's your kind of escape from normal life. I think where the military really helped me, was just, we have a saying in the Marine Corps. It's called Semper Gumby, right? You're always flexible, and
Mhm.
anybody that's worked in the municipal government knows this. You always got to be flexible. You have to adapt and overcome. All the cliche phrases that we use. The Marine Corps teaches you that to think on your feet and be flexible, and then also the leadership, right? There's a ton of leadership skills that you gain, and you don't even know that you're really gaining leadership skills.
Mhm.
Whether you're starting as a fire team leader, you're supervising, three or four, private first classes or lance corporals, all the way to squad leader, to platoon sergeant. You know, those leadership skills are just irreplaceable as a young Marine, right? You're going in 18, 19 years old, and you're coming out of there having led these small groups, and just learning how to deal with people, and deal in tough situations, and stressful situations. Now, the stressful situations that we face here in parks and recreation are certainly not the same stressful situations that you face, when you're on a deployment, or even you're in the field training. But it just teaches you those skills to just remain calm, adapt, and lean on the people to your left and to your right.
Yeah. And I think that what the military and Parks and Rec realize is that, you have to have a place for you to kind of disconnect, unwind from either the battle on the battlefield or the battle in the community. You still need a place for your people to come together, relax, do something, with their body, athletic, something, get out and unwind a little bit. And so every base has these sports fields or these workout facilities for their community to come into. And in the very same way, Parks and Rec does this for their community. Anything to be said about the health, the mental and physical health that Parks and Rec played both in the military and then now transitioning into Parks and Rec?
Yeah, so obviously, as a Marine, and really, across all the branches, physical fitness, you're held to a standard, a very high standard. So having that ability to go out and practice your physical fitness, and make
Mhm.
sure that you're able to do the job. I think transitioning from the military into parks and recreation, you have that appreciation for those facilities. And when I was, geez, probably my last few years, there was this real kind of transition from your, I would say, traditional physical fitness, right? The push-ups, the pull-ups, the 3 mile run, the sit-ups, right, into more of this functional fitness. Whereas what you're doing on the battlefield looks more like this, and not doing pull-ups, 3 mile run, sit-ups, right?
Mhm.
So adapting your facilities to meet that kind of growing need, and then you kind of get into the CrossFit, the high intensity interval training that you do. So now a lot of our facilities are adapting to those types of classes, right? Because it's not just about being big and strong, and being able to lift weights. Right now, it's more about functional fitness, if you will, right? Where you're doing different movements that you do in normal life, right? If I'm working out, I'm pretending like all right, I'm at this special event, I got to move 20 tables, or I got to pick up these big 10 by 10 tents and carry them across like that. So I think that's where that bridge came from the military, and getting into that more functional fitness space on the battlefield, and how do we apply that to parks and recreation in our facilities, right? Particularly in a rec center, and the spaces. You're always going to provide those traditional spaces, but then how do you continue to adapt to those functional spaces, and classes too, and the programming too, and how you organize them, and be adaptable to those changing lifestyles that people had, while not overly competing with the private sector. The private sector does a really good job with that. So how do you kind of merge those two together? So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I saw, transitioning from the military over to, traditional parks and recreation, is the type of activities that you do at rec centers,
Mm.
specifically for fitness. And on the wellness side, it's the same thing, right? Excuse me. When you have these classes that focus on life, right? So you think about, preparing for retirement, and accounting, taxes, and things like that. Some organizations really have robust programming in those areas on just basic life. And I was thinking, man, when I was a 20-year-old, I would have loved to go to how to do your taxes, and how to go through mortgages, and how to do life, right? And I think a lot of parks and rec agencies are kind of sliding into that realm too, where they're not only looking at the physical fitness, but also the life fitness, right? The mental part of going through this crazy thing that we call life.
Yeah. Now, I've seen a lot of public-private and public nonprofit relationships where the local municipal government obviously has the land, the facilities, everything, bought, paid for, maintained. But then they may bring in either a nonprofit to maybe work on some homelessness issues, and they just give them an office and a place to do their work. But then we can also see, I've even seen somewhere like a yoga studio will host their class in your facilities. So that way they're able to provide the service, they get a little money. Are able to provide the service. Maybe you'll get a cut of it. Do you have anything like that going on?
Oh yeah, a lot of programs like that, and we'll partner, with a karate studio or a dance
Mhm.
studio, and we provide the facility, and we provide the overall management of registration, and we bring in those expertise, because it's better for the community. It provides a better service for us to manage the kind of behind the scenes operation, and gives them that ability to have a little bit more outreach to the community. So yeah, a lot of karate classes, dance classes, art classes. We have fantastic partnerships with a lot of the contractors here in Erie that just utilize our spaces, and yep, we'll get a cut of that, and it's beneficial for that instructor, and they don't have to go out and build and invest a lot of capital, and we're filling up people. Because here's the thing: if you come to the rec center for an art class or a dance class, ballet class, something, then you're probably looking on the walls and seeing, oh, summer camp, what's that all about? Or wow, this has a really nice pool, or wow, this has a really nice workout facility. So there's a kind of a domino effect where, and I get these great membership members of the month emails from our staff over at our Erie Community Center, and it's often people that come to a class for the first time, and then you hook them in, and now they're going to this class and this class. And same thing with fitness instructors, right? Like I excuse me, with a lot of our fitness classes, there is so much variety, and to bring all those people on as staff, that can be a little burdensome. So we partner with these contractors to come in and teach some of our fitness classes, and we do have some part-time staff as well that teach those. But it really creates a nice balance between really high dollar classes,
Mhm.
and just affordable classes. because that's what we want to focus on. And same thing for youth sports, right? We're the recreation arm. We're, if you want to go to a CrossFit gym, go to a CrossFit gym, right? But if you're just looking to, be healthy, maybe you want to start out, come to one of our HIIT classes, come to a Zumba class, come to, one of these Les Miles fitness classes that we have,
Mhm.
and get started there, because our contractors are a big part of what we do in our system.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Okay, so shifting gears a little about YPN, we obviously just ran the commercial on YPN. This was one of the first parts of Parks and Rec community that we felt like we wanted to serve because this is all of our future leaders coming in. And you've done a lot with the young professionals. So maybe just give a quick spiel as to what is, in your opinion, in your mind, what is the Young Professionals Network and how is it being used in Colorado and nationwide?
Well, and when we talked, it's that pipeline, right? Where we have our lifeguards and our parks maintenance technicians and our open space technicians and our trail technicians and our day camp staff and our summer camp staff. Those are the folks who are going to fill our pipeline and make sure that we have solid, well-rounded parks and recreation professionals leading to the future. And I know your latest episode kind of alluded to this, but what we're seeing, even here in Colorado, I know we touched about how Colorado is very, very much clued into the outdoor recreation industry, but a lot of the I would say traditional parks and recreation management programs, the program that I attended at University of Northern Colorado, there was a program at I believe at Metro Denver. They've transitioned away or cut completely those programs. So you know the kids coming out of high school aren't going to school for parks and recreation.
Mm,
So how do we make sure we keep that pipeline full? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because I could probably rattle off 5 or 6 professionals that I know that didn't start in parks and recreation.
right.
Is how do you keep those young people who are not considering parks and recreation a career engaged? So I'm starting to work a little bit with a large school district down south, and working a little bit with our Colorado Parks and Recreation Association on this kind of classrooms to community idea, where
Mm,
all we want to do is, and this matches a lot with what Young Professionals Network is doing, and they're doing a fantastic job. And a lot of this, what I'm talking about, I just want to bring it down a little bit to a more local level, to where, I talked about going to the second grade class, but I want to start going to, the high schools and even the middle schools, and talking about, hey, I know you may need a job in a few years, but consider this a profession, and creating the storytellers within our organization and saying, hey, if you don't have a linear path into parks and recreation, we want to hear that story. And then where these school districts, when they have job fairs or when they have chats with their students, bringing those storytellers in to talk about their experiences and how they got into parks and recreation. So CPRA, I think, just revamped a little bit of their, kind of young professionals network, local to Colorado. So mentorship opportunities are really big, and it's going to be a really important uh, next phase of our profession, is to make sure that we're telling these young people, hey, you don't have to go to school for parks and recreation. It's awesome if you do, but if you want to go to school for landscape architecture or even engineering, that there's a lot of opportunities where, and really just you know not realizing that you can have a parks and recreation career. I think we hear that a
mhm.
lot too, to where I just kind of stumbled on this job and I really liked it. You know, and really quickly, I just had a really great meeting with a gentleman who had just transitioned out of 20 years in the Army, and
Mm,
he had applied for a job here in Colorado, and I got connected with him through a nonprofit, a veteran nonprofit that I occasionally help out with. And he said, I just want to kind of know about parks and recreation, and I toured him around some of our facilities and had a chat with him. And by the end of our meeting, he was so excited about, kind of a career in kind of parks and recreation. So I think is if you can just have the passionate storytellers, through Young Professional Network, through another organization that can just tell that story, I think that's really going to help fill that pipeline with future
Yeah.
professionals.
I love and we are right in lockstep with that idea. And if you have any that have a good story to tell that maybe stand in front of a high school, college, grade school class, I'd love to have them on our Friday show. We're always looking for those storytellers that just want to give a great testimony of how they came in. And maybe if you can even speak a little bit more that there's so many jobs inside of Parks and Recreation that have nothing to do with Parks and Rec. It could be um, like you said, landscape architecture, could be accounting, could be marketing, and Parks and Rec industry needs all the above. It's not just for the traditional Parks and Rec people that we consider.
Right. And you kind of nailed it on that with our facility management. One of our best facility supervisors, who is now our business services division manager,
Mhm.
worked at Home Depot for years, and then transitioned over to being a facilities supervisor, and that. So there's that, just that kind of natural, like, oh, this looks like a neat job. I'll come work here part time. And she had a little bit of background in accounting, but she was our facility supervisor for years, and now she's our business services division manager. Helps us out with contract management, budgeting, all those types of
Mhm.
things. I would say one of the strongest project coordinators that I've ever had a pleasure to work with. He went to school for history
Mm.
and got a job as a part-time, a maintenance tech, got full-time parks and maintenance technician, and then I stole him away from our parks division to have him manage projects. And he thrives, and he's so good at talking with people. We have a recreation division manager, got her start in therapeutic recreation, is a little more traditional, I would say, path, but she went from running therapeutic recreation programs to now managing our Erie Community Center and all the programs associated with it. Our Parks and Open Space Division manager is a former forester.
Yep.
So I mean, there are multiple ways to, the path is not always linear, and sometimes you're just starting out as a adult softball umpire or an umpire, and you're just kind of saying, hey, what's this all about? So being able to,
Mhm.
just take your skills and just apply them. We have kids that are going to college for, excuse me, they want to be lawyers, and they want to be, they want to be doctors and things like that. But my secret Parks and Rec card is like, man, I really hope that you don't want to be a doctor anymore, and you want to come back and you want to be one of our
Right.
camp directors or something like that, because once people start working, within the area, they kind of see what it's all about, and it's that first step is just getting them in the
Yep.
door. Our senior, excuse me, our development neighborhood services division manager is a landscape architect by trade,
Mhm.
and she's been in the municipal space for a long time. But same thing is now she works in parks and recreation, and she just absolutely love it, because we're a fun group of people to work around, as a lot of your
Mhm.
viewers and guests that you have on. That's why we that's why we stick around, is because we have a lot of fun, and we do great work for our communities, and it's a privilege to be able to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and so if you're, I guess this would be a slight sales pitch to all those engineers, arch landscape architects, project managers. If you find yourself working for a chemical plant or a big commercial operation, Parks and Rec has a humongous load to lift when it comes to managing projects, and it's never ending nonstop. I have some friends of mine that came on the facilities maintenance show, and the level of credentials that they had to go get to just manage projects. I mean, this is a very never ending part of Parks and Recreation that almost goes unnoticed, but all your facilities are getting upgraded, torn down, rebuilt, built from scratch, and it's just one project after the other. And some of these guys have like 20 projects going on all the time, year round, nonstop. And that's, you might not think that if you're an engineer designing stuff for some big industry that Parks and Rec needs you badly, but they do. That is a big chunk of Parks and Rec. Anything to say about that crowd, how we can get them in this industry?
Yeah, no, project management is so huge from again, rebuilding a recreation center, you know, from a shelter project, a playground project. They are often complex. Think about when you take your kids to the playground, just look around and see, the infrastructure that's involved. And obviously some of it you can't see, but how things drain to make sure it stays dry, how
Mhm.
it is, right? There is a whole science, right? We know we have the certified playground safety inspectors and the courses, and I've seen that book, and it's not thin, right? It's as big as a
Right.
textbook. So
Yep.
there's a whole science behind playground safety, and then how, even things like, concrete, and especially here in Colorado where we have, two seasons, sometimes in one day. It can be 60 degrees and sunny, and then 32 degrees and snowing in the same day sometimes. So how you manage, how pour concrete and what that looks like. You have, managing people, managing subcontractors, managing schedules. It's a complex project. So when we look at a park project, it's not, oh, we're just putting in grass and, irrigation. No, that's just the stuff that you see, but it's
Right.
it's the drainage, it's
Yep.
it's the irrigation. There's a whole science behind irrigation. I'll listen to our turf supervisor talk about irrigation for hours, and
Mhm.
I'll just sit there just wide-eyed, be like,
Ah,
because there's a
right.
whole science behind it, again, specific to Colorado, but water is a finite resource, and how we use that, there's a whole science behind it to make sure that you're responsibly irrigating your park system to not only serve the community, but make sure you're being cognizant of our water usage, and we're setting a good example for the community. So there's a
Yep.
science behind that. And then, our, traditional, circulation and traffic patterns, and we talked about trail usage. Is how do you make sure that, you're slowing down, the 40 mile an hour e-bikes around a neighborhood park with curbs, and these concepts of CEPTEB, the crime prevention through environmental design. So I mean, and this all stuff that you don't necessarily, they don't teach you in Parks and Rec school.
Right.
And then I will finally on that one. When I got to Erie, and I'm comfortable saying this now, but I didn't know what a final plat was, and how development process works. I was in
Mm.
the dark. I had to have a planning 101 class from a couple of our planners, and now that's, it's a big part of my job. And not only you're designing a park in this one little park, but you're considering an entire development. Now that's not, really common if you're not a growing community, but thinking about how we impact the system. I mean, no matter if you're an engineering project manager or, a construction project manager, there's probably a niche for you to fall into when you're in parks and
Oh, yeah.
recreation.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to a regular guest of mine, Garrett James in Texas. We decided we were gonna make a whole 1-hour show just on turf. And to your point earlier, as we start, I was like, "All right, so what's the first thing about turf?" And he said, "Well, you know, we got on the subject of water and irrigation, and we were just gonna cover it for a minute." 54 minutes later, we never got off the water.
Yeah,
We had
I
to,
believe
like,
it.
we're gonna have to make this a 3, 4 part series, and just irrigation, water, drainage, all the different chemicals in it, where you get your water from a lake, from the low. I mean, it was just,
Hmm.
I had personally no idea, and he's a golf course manager, how much
Hmm.
goes into the level of mastery and expertise that goes into some of these things that you just don't even consider when you look at a golf course or a green space, and you haven't even gotten off of water yet, and we just touched the surface of it,
Yeah.
and and then there's so much more that goes along with it. So, yeah, lots to say about, all the things that it takes to maintain this infrastructure.
Hmm.
Um, man, we've already gotten to 57 minutes. Okay, I did wanna talk a little bit about, CPRA. Give us the state of the union there. How is it doing? I know y'all have a really good, state association.
Yep, very strong association. We're in a great position right now. Our section participation is up. Our membership is up. We have fantastic sections and sections leadership, everything from therapeutic recreation to parks to active adults, and the level of participation that we're seeing, particularly from younger professionals, is great. We have a ton of professional development opportunities that we offer throughout the year through those sections, through CPRA. Our CPRA staff does a fantastic job in kind of keeping everybody organized. Our annual conference is coming up in, I think it's October. Yeah, we usually have it in
Mhm.
October. We kind of bounce around the state a little bit. Try to give opportunities for people on the Western Slope, right, which is opposite of where I am,
Yeah.
to come to that conference. And I think for the past 2 or 3 years, it's completely sold out. We have a lot of great presentations and great speakers that we have come to that conference. This year, I'm actually presenting on succession planning, having come from a manager role and then kind of getting positioned really well to take over the director role in Erie. So I'm actually going to be presenting at this year's CPRE conference up in Vail, I believe, to do that. So
Mhm.
no, CPRA is a great association, and I was chatting with our president not too long ago, and he went to another state association conference, and just kind of talking about the things that I just said, and our section leadership and our professional development opportunities, and that state association was very jealous of what CPRA does. So again, another bonus about being in Colorado is we really have a strong state association that works really well with NRPA and then of course all of its members to make sure that our membership is getting what they need and to do
Yeah.
really great stuff here in Colorado in terms of Parks and Rec.
Yeah, you really are a great example of how to run a really good state association. And one day I hope to attend and as the Daily Parks and
I'll
Rec
be
show and do like 5 or 6 shows just from the convention because it's just so much great stuff that goes on there.
Yeah.
Now did you say does your wife also work in Parks and Rec or is she
She doesn't. She doesn't. She's an online business manager. So
Oh, okay.
but
Okay.
I said, well, hey, there's some opportunities, and and actually, and I want to give her credit. I run a lot of ideas past her as well.
Mhm.
Like with what I do with my kids, I will run a lot of ideas past her because she just has that different mindset. So I want to give
Yeah.
her credit that a lot of some of the ideas that I have come from her. So I
Yeah.
want to make sure I give her credit. So.
Yeah, we had a fun idea one day to maybe do like a Spouses of Parks and Rec show, almost like a comedy series. What is it like to be married to someone that works in Parks and Rec?
There'd be a lot of eye rolling, I feel, in the episode with me and my wife, but
A lot of judgmental stuff going on here.
yeah, a lot
Good
of side
night.
eye.
Right. Well, man, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This has been
Yeah,
fantastic, and, I have some homework for you, man. If y'all do have anybody that speaks well to the young professionals, I really would love to get them on the show to share whatever message you think is worthy of sharing to the classroom setting. I'd love to share that with the country, on our Friday show because, I really think it's with Parks and Rec, I think it's just a messaging issue, getting the word out. I think the hard part of Parks and Rec, which is making an industry that's compelling, that leaves a legacy, that makes a difference from day
mhm.
one, that gives you great leadership opportunities. That hard work is done. It's just a matter of let's get out of this best kept secret industry that we're in and
Let's tell
tell
the
the world.
story. Let's tell
Yes,
our
definitely.
story. That's what we need to do.
Absolutely.
Well, Craig, thank you for having me on, and thank you for what you're doing for parks and recreation professionals across the nation, and really appreciate it, all the hard work and all the conversations that you have, and looking forward to seeing this thing kind of keep rolling.
Yeah, well, we'll keep doing it, and thank you for sharing, liking and sharing and getting all the subscribers and stuff. If it weren't support of the community, we would just be, I guess, talking alone in the room here. So I really appreciate y'all helping us out.
Absolutely.
Yep. Have a great week. Good talking to you,
You
Luke.
too, Craig. Thanks.
All right. Bye. All right, so that was Luke Bollinger over in Erie, Colorado. Another great example of a Parks and Rec professional that is just living a fulfilling life every day, doing his work. And I think it's another good example of a man that has chosen to make a difference in his daily life. Not waiting till retirement after he makes all his money and maybe gets a big high-end lawyer, doctor job, but saying, you know what, I'd like to start making a difference in my community, building these legacy infrastructures from trails, communities, highly active in the state and local associations, and I think that's really more about what I see a lot of human culture going towards is, making a difference in quality of life and not saying, well, except for in work. We're going to make a difference, but at work, you just got to grind it out for the paycheck. But did you know that there's an industry where now you can dedicate 40, 50 hours a week, maybe even 60 hours a week, making a difference in your community from the day you get out of high school or college or out of this other career that you're in? And so, such a great industry. I'm really happy to be able to share the message of the industry and to really try to get it out there. So, with that being said, I wanted to promote our Thursday show. Um, oh, okay. Yeah, already. Maybe I can catch him real quick. Hey, you still there, Luke?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. Sherry just walks in. Don't forget about the question. We have a question that was left for you by JP.
Oh, okay.
He is our Henry County executive director over an outstanding Parks and Rec system in Georgia. But we have a tradition where we leave a question for the next guest, and then you have to leave a
Oh,
question for us. So anyway,
okay.
JP asks you, is there anything you would do different in your current profession to make a difference, and why?
Oh, what a fantastic question, JP. What would I do different in my current profession to better serve the community? I think one thing that I would have done different kind of coming in is really be cognizant of the inclusivity of our spaces, right? I think for so long we, for lack of awareness, if you will, uh, we kind of, we always focus on the ADA accessibility, right, in our system, right? We have to meet those standards, but I think going beyond that, right, those ADA standards and making sure that our playgrounds are truly accessible to everybody, where they have a cognitive disability, physical disability, social disability, right? That I think we're only really starting to scratch
Mm,
the surface of what that actually looks like. So when we're building new parks and new playgrounds, making sure we're bringing that community in and saying, okay, how do you interact with these spaces, and making sure that we're building them. I was on a roundtable with a bunch of parents and caregivers of kiddos with varying disabilities. And my question was, hey, what would you guys like to do at parks? Like, what's really fun for you? And I'll never forget it. This gal said, well, we don't go to parks because there's really nothing for us to do. And that just
mm,
broke my
oh,
heart. And
yeah,
I from that moment on, I vowed that any park playground renovation or any new park build that we were going to be involved in, we were going to make sure that we were inclusive. And we activated our therapeutic recreation program. That's one part of it. But yeah, I think that's one thing that coming into the profession that I would have known that, better educated on
yeah.
making sure our spaces are truly inclusive.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you said that because it's I don't know what's happened politically with DEI and how it's got this bad rap and stuff, but I love when we say inclusion, this is what Parks and Rec means by that. And I think that's something everybody can get behind, and it's obvious to do is just to make sure we're not leaving out people that we should be serving because they live in our community, and to have
Yep.
that top of mind. So glad that was it. That was what was your answer for that.
Yeah. Great question.
Any okay, so what's the question you want to leave for my next guest?
Oh, what's a question that we can leave for the next guest? How can you, how do you, hold on, I got to figure out how I want to phrase this. How can you best plan 5, 10, 15 years out in the future for this changing population, or this changing Yeah, you're gonna have to doctor it up a little bit, but
I will. I got it.
how are you for this next generation, right? Of making sure that we're providing spaces that kids want to come to, right? There's such a high demand for these teen spaces, but they don't want to just go sit on the couch. So how are you planning 5, 10, 15 years in the future for the next generation of users? So you have
Yeah.
to doctor that one up a little bit, but I think you
Yeah.
got the
No.
gist of it. And then
And
I
that's
want
a
to know, because that's something that I want to get into, is I want to make sure that we're providing spaces for this teen population that have there are so many screens, and and now they're more mobile than ever. So how do you kind of help merge those two? I don't know
yeah.
how we're
Yeah.
getting there.
That's a great I mean, that's a great question, and it's definitely something that the Parks and Rec is struggling with because it's such a moving target, and the culture's moving so fast in so
Yeah,
many different directions. So, how do you kind of plan for that? That's a
yeah,
good one.
yeah.
Well, man, thank you so much again for coming on the show today. Really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Craig. Take
All
care.
right, take care. Bye. Okay, so glad I got those questions out. That was a great answer to the question. Um, as far as making sure that we're including all those people in your community. And I know a lot of times when we think inclusion, we're thinking maybe just the wheelchair, which is someone we definitely want to include in our playgrounds and accessibility, and to make sure that it's not just a ramp, but that the playground structure can a wheelchair can go easily up and down the little areas or in the little merry-go-round, stuff like that. But then it's also like Down syndrome kids or people or like me, hyperactive kid that wants to run all over the place. So maybe making a fence around the playground gives the mother a little break so that she doesn't look up and realize her child is like darted across the soccer field. So there's all kind of different ways to consider, how to include the moms, the kids, the different needs, whether it's physical handicap, mental handicap, and then also, kids that just can't afford a lot of the programming because they just come from a poor family or a single parent home or don't have transportation. And so Parks and Rec gets to consider all that and really, make good strides and good steps towards including everyone in their community. So love that. And then yeah, great answer. Great question there, Luke, as far as um, planning 15, how do you plan 15 years as quick as everything's changing with technology and the internet and all the different devices? But I honestly think Parks and Rec is doing a great job, mainly because they look at it as this is our, you know, problem to solve. This is the question to be answered. And so, yeah, we're going to start asking that question a lot more, see what kind of answer we get from it. Okay, so every Thursday, Youth Sports Mastery. We have a great commercial for them. We're going to go ahead and run that. This is Anything Youth Sports. Host Aaron Locks does this, 40 years in the industry. Just does an amazing job with bringing on great coaches, great athletes, athletic directors. The industry of youth sports is booming, and it's not just your traditional sports of like baseball, football, soccer, tennis, but it's, pickleball, yoga, you name it, volleyball. There's so many other sports that are inside, plus can't leave out aquatics and all that kind of stuff that's coming on. So anyway, we have a whole show dedicated to the idea or the industry of youth sports, which sits squarely inside of Parks and Recreation. So we'll go ahead and run that, and then I'll play one more before we head out.
At DPRS Media Co., we don't just create content. We elevate community through storytelling. Now, we're proud to introduce the newest addition to the family. Welcome to Youth Sports Mastery, the podcast where champions are shaped, not just on the field, but in life. Hosted by National Academy of Athletics founder Aaron Locks. Youth Sports Mastery dives deep into how youth sports can empower kids, strengthen communities, and build leaders. From coaching culture to recreation strategy, and from player development to parent impact, every episode brings game-ready insight from the people making it happen. Youth Sports Mastery goes live every Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Only on the Daily Parks and Rec Show, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics. And powered by DPRS Media Co. This is where purpose meets play.
All right, so play hard, have fun. That's his mantra, and I really think playing hard and having fun is all about Parks and Rec when it comes to, doing something with youth sports inside of Parks and Rec. It's more about the kids got to have fun. If they're miserable and they're not coming back, what are we doing here? And also recognizing that most of the people that walk onto a court, walk onto a field as a child are never getting a D1 scholarship or never going to the pros, and that yet we don't want to cut most of the population off from all the valuable lessons that's taught by a coach, from your teammates, just learning to win, we're learning to lose, learning to discover your athletic ability. It's so important that that work is done, and Parks and Rec really leads the charge. Outside of the highly competitive environment, you find Parks and Rec is doing all the other heavy lifting when it comes to teaching those valuable life lessons. So that's a wrap for today, and I'm going to go ahead and close the show out with my 200th episode. Thank you to the entire industry, all people in Parks and Rec. Thank y'all so much for doing what y'all do. And it's really been an honor creating this media company for Parks and Recreation. And just keep up the great work. 2025 is going to be a great year. And it's already an awesome year for Parks and Rec, and I can't wait to continue to lift this industry up. So thank you guys. Love you. Bye.
From a simple mic in a rec center to a full-scale media company for the people who power our parks. 200 real stories, 5 original shows, and more to come, with one powerful mission: to lift up the voices of Parks and Rec professionals across the country. From maintenance crews and young interns and youths who love sports, to directors and public servants making a difference. We've built a platform that honors the unsung heroes behind every clean trail, every weekend tournament, every safe, welcoming park. This milestone isn't just about the content, it's about the people, the passion, the purpose. To every guest, listener, and supporter, thank you. The next chapter starts today. This is DPRS Media Co. Media for public service.